Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the RTF show. I'm your host, Michael, here with Brother John. Brother John, how's it going?
It's going well. I noticed you don't have your background on, which,
I don't.
yeah.
I'm on my work computer, which does
Mm.
not house my background.
What jersey are you wearing though?
We'll talk about it in a minute. I want to introduce our guest, the one, the only, the arch nemesis of the Kankakee Staleys. Um, a great guy, Bowers, and that's what people say. But in terms of fantasy football, my arch nemesis, Jake Ostro, joining us here, the Kansas City Royals to my Chicago White Sox. How are you, Jake? How's it going?
I'm doing great. I would say I'm more the Chicago Cubs to your Chicago White Sox, but that's fine.
Well, the reason, and this is going to play into our power rankings later, is I'm wondering if people are going to think there's a bit of an AL Central um, thing going on with our division where three teams are just kind of beating up on one lesser team, and all three of those teams might make the playoffs and could do pretty well. We'll see. I don't know. So I was trying to keep it in the division.
Makes sense. I will say I have been listening to the pod and I have been offended for our division. With you saying that another division is better than us, we are clearly the strongest division. And
I said
no
that?
doubt about it. Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't. I don't remember anything I say in the show. Nor do I. Nothing I say in the show means anything, obviously. No, I think let's save it. We'll get into that in a little bit. We get a lot to get through today. And we have some technical limitations, so let's jump right into it. Um, week 5, hell of a week. Jake, how's it feel to be undefeated?
It feels good. Honestly, I thought I was going to lose this week to Bill.
Mhm.
I had Saquon and Amon-Ra on bye. I lost Achan and Leggett to injury. So I was convinced that
Mid-game, right? Is that
Yep.
mid-game, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they collectively scored like 4 points. So yeah, I was convinced that Kareem Hunt was gonna go off for like 40 points, and he was well on his way. Frankly, I actually thought I was gonna lose yesterday, but I didn't. So it feels great.
Well, you had Drake London going off, really, really helped secure that victory for you. That was a hell of a great game. Finally, I feel like by Drake London.
Yeah, and I went back and forth a lot, and almost started Mooney also, but it was a Thursday night game, and I was just like scared to start 2 Falcons on Thursday and then just be like mad the rest of the week while I was losing to Bill. So I didn't, and I obviously regretted that because the week would have been over basically.
Well, I mean, getting the win when the Sun God was on his bye week, right? He had somebody else on their bye week, I believe.
Saquon.
Saquon on his
Yeah,
bye.
it's huge.
So pulling that W down, it's got to feel. I mean, that's got to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah, we got those buys out of the way, and
Yeah,
now we're gonna cruise,
you're
hopefully
rolling.
with no injuries. But
Yeah, injuries. Well, we'll get to those in a second too. What else happened in week 5, John?
Well, Kelly, 2 weeks in a row has just slaughtered a Hoffman brother.
Mm-hmm.
Just embarrassed them. Which it's phenomenal to see. Both Ken and Doug just losing to the Narwhals. And Kelly, she's third in the division right now. But has really put on quite a show the last few weeks, and has upped her points for her average. So and all while Pat Mahomes has played like trash. So if we see Pat Mahomes pick it up here at all, as
Mm-hmm.
well as Travis Kelce, I think I think Kelly will be rising in that division, which I guess we'll get into more later about what each division looks like and who the big players are. But yeah, yeah, great squad so far. And then two other teams snuck out some wins. Peter beat Josh by 5 points or 4 points, which they both had down weeks, but lucky for them, they're playing each other. Josh though picked up Tucker Craft, didn't play him, chose to play that bum Kyle Pitts, who, I mean,
How did
doesn't Josh know this by now?
well, I mean, Kyle Pitts had his best game of the season, didn't he?
Yes.
It's 12 points. 12 points.
Yeah. So I gotta imagine coming out of Thursday night, Josh was probably thrilled with 12 points from Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, but he
Um,
went on and picked up Tucker Craft, who was one of the hot pickups of last week, right? Wicks and Craft. He went on and got Craft. Craft put up 22 points. Definitely would have secured him the win
yeah,
should he
yeah,
have
that's
played him.
rough.
And you're playing Peter, which I feel like you start your Packers. It feels pretty good when they force Peter to lose. So yeah, unfortunate. But Peter gets the win there. Not good for our division. So and
Yeah.
then Steve snuck out a win against Alec, which was a pretty big matchup, I think, as far as Steve was at 3-1 going into the week, and Alec was also at 3-1 going into the week. So a pretty big swing in the standings there.
Yeah, high scoring matchup too. I think both their teams, played pretty well. It just came down to Josh Allen not showing up for Alec, uh, which
9 of
is
30 is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. He he's looked rough of late. Uh, and honestly, I don't know. Watching some of that stuff about that hit, I mean, his head hitting the ground. It does seem like he may have been knocked out for a second. Uh,
And
which he went
possibly,
right
for
back in.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was some sort of head injury, but look at who he was throwing to that week. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
Mac Hollins and Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel and Dalton Kincaid.
Well,
Crazy. Mac Hollins. Mac
Dalton
Hollins.
Kincaid was supposed to be good, uh, but turns out, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Mac
all right.
Hollins, though.
Yeah, that's rough. All right.
It's insane.
So where we stand now, in the sweetness division, Jake is on top, 5-0, only undefeated team in the league. 5-0. Steve in second place at 4-1. Kelly right behind him at 3-2. The Enforcers just hanging out right at the bottom there. Sorry, the Enforcers. It's the Kankakee Staleys, but I forgot why does it show? It doesn't show your team name. It shows your God.
Yeah.
Sleeper sucks.
Maybe your players are confused. They're
Well,
having an identity crisis.
I think everybody's would be confused then.
Not mine.
Um, that's true. That's true. Hoffman head of the Papa Bear division, 4-1. I should say Ken Hoffman, head of the Papa Bear division, 4-1. A little jumble in the middle, and then John way back there. Can barely see him. In fourth place
Well,
at
yeah,
one
okay.
four.
Okay.
And
Uh,
then moving on, Alec and Josh Porter tied atop the peanut division. However, Alec with a substantial points lead over Josh.
Now you mentioned points. Now you mentioned points.
And then Fitz right behind Josh at 2 and 3, and Bill bringing up the rear with an 0-5 record. Nothing to be ashamed of, Bill. Nothing at all to be ashamed of. All right. What before we do what we're going to do in the show is kind of walk through some power rankings. But before we get into that, there was some news this week that we could go through. Mostly some big injuries. One huge one that's going to impact a team that's fighting for first place. Nico Collins today gets put on IR. What I mean, what do you think the ripple effects of this are? I'll ask Jake since we're in the division with Steve. Does this give you confidence that you can kind of keep this up, that you can keep Steve at bay? Were you worried about Steve's team beforehand with AJ Brown coming back? How are
I
you
wasn't
feeling?
that I wasn't that worried about his team. I think that like my overall starting roster is better. He has like obviously star wide receivers, and Nico was performing phenomenally, top the wide
Hmm.
receiver rankings, and same with Jamar coming on. But his four best players are all wide receivers. You could start three of them. So I wasn't
Yeah.
that worried at the moment. I mean, I think that you
Hmm.
can always make improvements. I think that's going to make like the Nico injury is going to make it harder for him to make the improvements that he needs to make to be like a real
Well,
threat if I stay healthy.
we saw today him, Steve trying to clear some roster space. Rice and Brooks, trying to move one of them. Um, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Steve's got three fantastic wide or four, really four fantastic wide receivers that I think. I mean, if Devontae Wicks decides he can catch the ball, um, but
Yeah.
I
I
do
saw
agree about his
he
running
has a
backs.
Wicks has a 34% catch rate.
Hmm. Hmm.
34%. It's insane. Like that's one of the lowest catch rates ever.
Well, I think he's second or first or second in drops in the league this season. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
so bad.
Um,
Anyway, that was
the
a crazy stat to hear.
the player I wanted to ask you both about on Steve's team to see if this kind of, you know, could bolster some of this and maybe provide some relief from Nico. Is it tank time in Jacksonville? Are we going to see the rise of the Bigsby, or was
I don't
this a one game thing?
I don't think it's time yet. I think it's going to be more of a split. And
Hmm.
well, they're playing Indy that week. Like
Hmm.
I just they've been so bad that they're still going to need to throw the ball to their running back, and that's going to be ETN.
Yeah,
I don't really see it being Bigsby. I think it's going to end up being more of a split, which is just going to be annoying for Peter and Steve,
yeah.
unless somebody gets hurt. That's kind of my take on it. I do think Bigsby eventually takes that job, like by the end of the year, though.
I agree with you, Jake. Bigsby, I think it's more of an outlier game. If you look at Bigsby on the year, he's had one target all year, one catch, one target all year, and that was this past game. So they don't use him on passing downs at all, right? So to me, that says he will never he will never be able to take over the spot, right? The number one spot. All last year he had three targets the whole time. So uh, they just don't use him in the passing attack in the passing game. So he can't fully take over that. I don't know if ETN was a little hurt last week or what, but I just don't see them fully. It's not a Bucky Irving, Rashad White situation, right? Where you know you're seeing Bucky get involved in the passing game and the running game a bit more, even though he's not, from what I understand, a good pass blocker. But yeah, so I don't think that. I think it's sort of fool's gold to rely on Tank Bigsby here.
Yeah, I just think you're
Um,
which.
I just think you're touchdown dependent if you're if you're Bigsby, and like you're not gonna rush 13 times and score a couple touchdowns like all the time. So if you're not
Mhm.
catching the ball, or, you might take the job, but you're not gonna be like a wide or a running back one or anything for your squad. At least
Mhm.
not right now.
Which, is to counter that on his team with Roshan Johnson, right? Where, that is, he has Roshan's been the goal line back, right? So if you're looking for touchdowns to bolster your running game or potentially flex, someone into that, you could look at Roshan, who in the last few weeks has had the bulk of the goal line carries. So, and in the short term, he has Najee, who has zero competition uh
Mhm.
for the backfield with Warren and Patterson out. But yeah, I think his running situation is probably his weakest point, and so if he can move someone. Unfortunately, the
Um,
person that would potentially take on some of that is either Ken, or you know, who would be in a position to take on, let's say, someone like Nico Collins, who's injured, uh, would be his division mate, who's 5-0, or Ken, who's also 4-1 and notoriously difficult to trade with. So,
okay. Um, the any other injury news we need to cover real quick?
um, Peter had Aaron Jones go down, which is a fairly
Yes.
big loss. But other than that,
Yep.
now we touched on some of Jake's losses, but
Yeah.
yeah, Aaron Jones going down is a big deal to him. He's also in a bit of a precarious spot as far as running backs go. I know that he
Yeah.
has a trade offer out right now. Looking to swap backup running backs with a division mate. And Ken, he let me know, give me a heads up. He sent out a trade offer, backup running back for backup running back, and Cam Akers for Brees Hall. So he's waiting to hear back on that. But other than that, I don't know if
I,
he's
Well,
made any other moves.
what's kind of crazy about Peter's team I'm looking at right now is he's 3-2 and he has 20 points scored more than you, Mike.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, and way less than
Um,
me, and 40 points less than me. Okay, it's ridiculous.
we're talking about Mike and Peter right now.
I mean, it all swings on the turn it can go like that. You never know. I've come close to some victories here this year. Like the White Sox. We were in a lot of those games. We were around. Um, all right, let's move on. So, waiver wire, some big waiver wire pickups. People spent a lot of money this week.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, by the way, I did the math. Um, your your team is current, or your division is currently has a 0.6 winning percentage. Um, without you, Mike, though, it jumps to 0.8. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, only could be
But the
the best.
problem with that is that you're including in that point eight, I believe you'd still be including the victories that they had over me.
I don't know how that works.
I think you'd have to remove those three victories. All right. Let's
I
get
think
to
that's
the
fine. I think they're still doing great.
let's get to the waiver wire real quick. Kelly gets her man in Christian Kirk. Uh, Cousins, Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. 17
Uh,
bucks. 17 bucks,
17
big bid.
bucks. You know what? Honestly, for Kelly, who has been starting Pat Mahomes, um, the reality is since last season, and actually I can tell you exactly when, since week 8 of last season, Pat Mahomes has not been a good fantasy football quarterback. He's only finished with more than 20 points once in those since week 8 of last season, and it was like 20.2 or something. He finished, I think, QB8 last year, really based on one huge game he had at the beginning of the season when I think he put up like 40 points and maybe another one where he put up like 25. But that was it. For week 8 on, he was averaging about 14 points a game. And he's continued that here this season. I mean, the reality is the Kansas City Chiefs do not need Pat Mahomes to be Pat Mahomes of 2 or 3 years ago in order to win football games. They just don't need it to happen. And their defense is good enough now that he's not, playing from behind the way that he was before. So I just don't know. Like, if I were Kelly, yeah, I'd be looking around for quarterback help right now. I think it's time.
Yeah, I think Herbert was good until the ankle injury, and it seems,
Mhm.
it seems like that's probably going to persist. Um, and yeah, $47 to Pat Mahomes for the year was a steep price to pay.
Yep.
But honestly, going to the draft, it made a ton of sense to me. You had, yeah, I mean, I think you had, um, obviously Rasheed Rice, right, Rasheed Rice. You had Hollywood Brown, that wasn't slated to miss the whole year there, right? They had rejuvenated the passing attack. So, in my mind, it was like, okay, they're returning to some big play wide receivers, could be really good, but she's pivoted well so far. So, anyway.
Yeah.
And I like Kirk as a pickup. It's a bye week for the Chiefs. She
Hmm.
had not a great matchup with Herbert coming off, and you don't really know what he's going to do with his ankle injury. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, Kirk's playing Carolina this
Yep,
week.
I believe so.
Send it.
I mean, Kirk will put up points, as we saw last week. Why not? All right. The other waiver wire pickups, Doug wins Juju. Um, he's the only person to bid on him. There are
Yeah, I
two
was kind of
picks.
surprised by that. I'm surprised no one else bid for Juju.
This was a common theme today. Peter wins Damon Pierce for $11, who is a god awful running back, plays out of Houston. So congratulations to Peter. Um,
So he has
Pierre
three.
Strong for $5 to Bill.
Peter
What'd
is
you say?
rostering three Texans running backs now.
He sure is. Yes. He's got the whole backfield back there. Did he pick up what's the guy's name? Who's I'm not going to try to say.
Ugumba Wale.
Uh,
Yeah, is that it? Agumbawale?
I think
Yeah.
that's who it is. Yeah. It
Is he
doesn't
on
look
no,
like
I
he's
Peter's
on the
don't.
roster?
squad yet. Somebody should pick him up and try to trade him.
I might have to do that.
I think that's who Ken picked up and tries to trade him for Cam Akers.
The most contested pickup this week was the Chargers defense, which Alec Loesch took away. So congratulations to Alec. I'm not even sure who. Oh, they played Denver. That's right. Okay. Um,
I'm surprised no one bid on Juju. Why do you think, why didn't you guys put in a bid for Juju? Or why do you think that others did not?
It's a bye week. I think that just lower down the list, no projection. I
Mm-hmm.
I
just,
think
yeah,
I think yeah, that's probably part of it. I think you're also looking at like a point in the season where a lot of teams are being like you're being a little more careful with who you're
Yeah.
dropping. Like you have a lot of guys in your team that you'd like. You know, Juju
Yeah.
is, I mean, despite being on the Chiefs, I think it's still a bit of a like dart throw in terms of like his impact.
Yeah. I did hear I was listening to this podcast today and I did hear the stat that, Juju, prior to Rasheed Rice, coming in last year, Juju was on the Chiefs and played the Rasheed Rice role in 2022, I believe it was,
Mhm.
and had over 100 targets in that role, right? He played the Rasheed Rice role in 2022 and had the over 100 targets. and could very well step into that now. It seems like he is stepping into it based on this last game. So you could see um, him having, quite a few targets there. So
Yeah,
could be good, but
it's
also he's kind of
interesting.
washed and kind of a bum. So meh.
Yep. All right. I want to move into the power rankings segment of our show. So John and I created a list of power rankings. John has his list. I have my list. I think we'll just kind of compare notes starting at the bottom and see if we can reach some sort of consensus. Does that sound about right, John? And then Jake is just going to kind of pick us apart.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Let's okay. Let's let's start at the bottom. Let's kind of work through these first three teams, maybe, and then see where we're at.
Swear to God, if I'm one of the three teams, Mike, I'm gonna be fucking pissed at you. How dare you?
Here we go.
Go
The
ahead.
the
Do you
team
want
I
to
have at the
say
bottom.
are the bottom team at the same time?
Well, I think sure. Yeah, go ahead. One,
No.
two, three,
Bill.
Staley's. Oh,
Oh,
I put myself last. Let's look at Bill. Uh, so I didn't put Bill last, basically because I think he has a little bit more top end talent than I do. I don't have any top end talent. Um, Tyreek Hill, if they get an actual quarterback, is going to put up points for him. Mike Evans is still putting up points.
I traded for Mike Evans, so he's no longer on
I forgot
this
about
team.
that when I was looking at this.
did that go?
Well,
Oh, you're looking at last week's.
yep,
So
which
go
is
back
what I
and
was
go up.
doing when I put this list together, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Um, well, either way, the
I think he does have quite. Yeah, he does have more top end talent. I agree with you there. I like your team in the second half of the season. I think a bit more. But
well, thank you.
Yeah,
Um,
I have Bill's team last as well.
oh, shucks, guys.
I think his running back situation is just so bad that
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. But
it's going to weigh him
okay.
down further.
Well,
So
I think either way, you probably have me second to last, correct?
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
The Staleys in either you can swap Bill and I. Although I will say I do have like 70 more points than Bill. So
That's what I
yeah,
mean. I like you. You've got Debo. You've got Brian Thomas has been incredible. I mean,
awesome.
he might be the rookie of the year, depending on whether neighbors can get healthy, and how that plays out.
Mm,
Uh, Brian Thomas, he's clearly the best receiver on that Jags team, and they are using him really well. So,
yeah,
um,
I agree. I agree. That one certainly helps. Uh, yeah, my team not very good though. Few bright spots.
no,
I will own up to the fact that Steve did offer me Bigsby last week. I can't remember which player it was for, whether it was for Mixon or Debo. I did not take it. I would imagine the prices changed since we last talked about it. So, um, but I think I'm good with my, Bucky, and hopefully the, Allen kind of it plays a major role going forward in that offense. So we'll see. All right. Number three. John, who do you have?
so that's sort of where I kind of struggled. Is I think there's four teams here in this lower bracket, right? That sort of rounds out the bottom half.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think it's hard to say. I think it goes. Next up would be Fit.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Would be Fit,
Okay.
Brendan.
Okay.
So if you want to give me,
Um,
if you want me to give the bottom half, the rest of the bottom half, I'm happy to do so. But
well, I don't have Fitz next. I have John Rose's team next.
I'm outscoring him. I outscored him by 50 points, 10 points per game so far. That's ridiculous.
Uh, why fight for yourself over Fitz?
Uh,
Convince me
I'm
otherwise.
in this bracket, by the way. I'm in this bottom half. So to not say like I'm way better than Fitz, but I'm in
Mhm,
this bottom half of Fitz, right? Where these next four are sort of in that
mhm.
range.
Yeah.
I think I've gone up against some very tough teams so far, in my division. Um, and
Uh-huh.
then uh, last week again, Fitz to beat me, so I will say, there is that. And then Josh's team, which I think also is very good as well. But my team in particular, the CJ Stroud, Stephon Diggs, that is now a stack that has become infinitely more valuable. Now that Nico Collins is out, Josh
Mhm.
Jacobs is looking like a top six running back. And then I've hit on a few others that I think will have stronger second half seasons in DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins hopefully keeps it up, and then Rico Dowdle seems to be the number one running back there. And then I've had some,
Did
I
you
have
just
some
call
decent,
did you just call Josh Jacobs a top six running back?
yeah, yeah, I did. I did.
Okay.
I
Okay.
in volume alone, he'll get me there. I'm
The
happy. I'm happy
same
to pull up
the guy that the last 3 weeks has gone 5 points, 9 points, and 15 points.
without Jordan Love. Yeah, struggle
Okay.
with
Okay.
Jordan Love, top six running back.
Okay.
Book it.
Well, we'll see.
Um,
Jake, uh,
yeah.
let's bring Jake in here. We got him here for a reason. Jake, who do you think either of these teams is the third worst team? Would you put John below Fitz or the other way around, or do you have another team that you might eyeball to put into this slot?
I think I think I would put John's team below Fitz's because of the record. Like I I think that John is more likely to sell. And I think that Fitz has like keeper assets that could bolster his team in a way that could make him win more. So that's kind of like why I would lean that direction.
I like it. Um,
That's fair. I mean, if I lose the bill this week, yeah, the sell off is on. I mean,
yeah, I
without a
mean,
doubt, right? That's for sure. Like at 1-5, I don't think I'm coming back, but I think I got a get right game coming up, and my team's looking okay. You know,
yeah,
so
I mean, I do have to say your record played a bigger factor in the power rankings than your points for. Like you're 1-4, buddy. It's not, you're pretty far behind.
yeah, which
I
I
know you're
could,
not used to it. I know you're not used to it. It's all
yeah,
right.
not used to
Come
lashing
join
out.
us. It's fine down here. The water's warm, man. The
I mean,
water is warm.
what's crazy is that like the other option in my mind there was Peter's team, and he's 3-2. Like
Mhm.
so. I think it's
All
been a
right.
weird year.
After that big splash controversy, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be we'll be right back, y'all, after a word from our sponsors.
Hello, do you like lemonade? I sure fucking do. Would you like some of my lemonade? You sure fucking would. Enjoy. Pete's Lemonade, the sponsor of today's RTFL podcast. Don't leave home without it. A big gallon or jug will be just right for you. Thumbs up means cool. Good luck on your season, fellas. Have a good one.
Welcome back. Thank you for sitting through that word from our sponsors. So, John, we left off. You were the third team on my list. I guess really the ninth or 10th team. Jake, you had John agreeing with me. John, you had Fitz. I have Fitz right above you as well. So, I don't think there's that much variance. I have Fitz's team right there, and I agree. It's pretty close in that slot. I'm wondering though who you had in that slot above Fitz. Did you have yourself?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
to round out the bottom half, though, for me would be Doug, and then I had Kelly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just throw my next two teams out there. So my order went 10 was John, 9 was Fitz, 8 was Doug, and I had Peter right above Doug. So I mean, let's just hit Fitz's team real quick. So I think Fitz's team has again some good talent, and like Chase Brown coming on. I don't think that Zach Moss is injured, but I don't think that Chase Brown is going to take over that backfield, but he clearly has a lot of talent and is going to get some play. And so he's going to have some boom weeks in there. And if he can hold out until Pachenko gets back with Chase Brown, that also kind of relies on James Conner staying healthy, which is historically an issue. I think he's okay there, and then it really comes down to the misfortune of having two wide receivers that were drafted, I think, by most teams to be wide receiver ones, who just have simply not played like wide receiver ones yet this year. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this.
Yeah, I think his running back situation is rough, and his wide receivers have been underperforming, and I don't necessarily see them rising to that level that they were that their ADP was at, which at this point now doesn't really matter. But Garrett Wilson, okay, you just had your head coach fired. Most likely because your quarterback didn't like him. Olave's quarterback just got injured, likely out for multiple weeks. And then Devonta Smith and
even with Derek Carr, who I think generally has been a pretty durable quarterback and has, played through injury at time, Olave just doesn't seem to be the preferred target in New Orleans anymore. I mean, Shaheed is getting a lot of those targets.
I mean, outside of the first week and this last week, he's had 6 to 10 targets, so it's not terrible. But I think then you look at his tight end situation, and it's playing. Are you playing Mark Andrews? You're playing Likely. It's a coin toss, I think. As far as that goes, and so I don't see it working out the way that Fitz probably envisioned. But Jake, I'll pass it off to you as far as what you're seeing here. You did not have him next. You had Peter next, huh?
No, I had him next, but I think there's an argument to be made. I thought your call of Kelly was interesting. I I think
Frankly, I
that
think it's disrespectful. But
yeah, I think Kelly's team
I
needs
mean, it
some
was
work, but I don't think it's
Doug,
as
and then Kelly was 6 for me, so or 7. Sorry.
yeah.
so
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Jake.
yeah, I think I mean I also would go Fitz and then Doug on my list.
Okay.
In terms of the
So
power.
Doug's team, we did spend some time on Doug's team last week. We had Doug on, so I don't think we need to do a deep dive into. Did I click on Doug's team? I don't think we need to do a deep dive into Doug's team here. We spent a lot of time on it last week. Just trying to think if there's anything that changed that we want to mention. Not really. Jake, any thoughts on Doug's team? Any holes that you see that, need to be filled or parts of it that you like?
Yeah, I mean I think he has a lot of like okay, fairly good, like people I would want in
Mhm.
my flex. And he's got Jane Daniels like performing
Mhm.
like a maniac and made the Robinson trade. I think that there's potential there, but it's all kind of underperforming and he needs it to come together. I think that like if Robinson steps up and Harrison is what he's drafted to be,
Mhm.
they could carry his team. We just haven't seen it yet.
I agree. All right, let's jump up to the next slot. So, John, in the next slot, you had Kelly's team, the Narwhals, correct?
Yep. Yeah, that was my 7.
Okay.
Kind of in that almost next range. She was obviously the top half of that last sort of like grouping that I had, and then you kind of get into these next 2 the next 3 that are very close in my mind with Kelly. These next 2, there's 2 other teams that are close with Kelly here. But yeah, I've Kelly slotted in there. Happy to sort of
Mhm.
walk through that. I think what you talked about with Mahomes, and then Kirk Cousins has a history of being up and down, not always the most reliable. And then you're looking at your running back situations in Derrick Henry and Kyron Williams, which I think are 2 very strong running backs. And then it
Mhm.
falls off quite a bit there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got Williams on a bye, and you're starting Austin Eckler, backup running back for Brian Robinson.
I mean,
I don't know what his injury is, but
Eckler's been okay this year. Um, you know,
yeah. I mean, I think the Commanders are playing well enough um, to support two decent running backs, right? But I don't think like let's say Henry or Williams has an injury, that the depth there is you're in trouble, right? And then you're looking at her wide receiver situation, similar situation, right? With Cup, Worthy is not someone that you can necessarily rely on week in, week out. He's had 2 good games, 1 okay game, and 1 really bad game, right? Touchdown dependent, I would say. Um, and she's right now starting Wandell Robinson, Sutton, and Shaheed, who, yeah, now that Carr's out, I don't think is going to have the same impact that he had. So to me, that's why she is probably in that top half of the lower tier, top end of the lower tier. There's some top end talent, but not a lot of depth. And with the current injury situation, really tough. And Conklin and Kelsey have both been underperforming as well. So that's
yeah.
what
I
when I
mean,
look at that. There's
that that all makes sense to me. I think uh, it's Kelly's team. I like Kelly's team, and I have them 5th actually overall in my rankings. So a few slots higher than this. Um,
That's fair. I mean, there's
Derrick
two
Henry's
other
been,
teams that I would say were close, interchangeable, right? So
yeah, Derrick Henry has been great this year. Williams, I really like those two starting running backs, and I think they're going to take her pretty far. And her wide receivers, while I don't think at the moment, when you're just looking at the players that she's starting, she has like an obvious wide receiver one. I do think when Cup gets back, which it seems like he's coming back after the bye, I guess we'll see. But I think if she can get Cup back, and then I think some of what we were talking about before in terms of the Chiefs, who in terms of who benefits from Rice being out, um, whether it's Juju or playing that Rice role, I think we saw last game, Kelsey is the one that's probably going to benefit the most. And so if Kelsey turns it on here, I think she's I think she's got a good shot. I think she's got a good team. I like Rashid Shaheed. You know, Wandale Robinson has been fine this year. Like he's been all right. Um, yeah, I feel like there's a lot to work with here. So I do still worry about Pat Mahomes as her quarterback. So we'll see. Jake,
Yeah, I agree with you. I would probably put Peter here.
Mhm.
Um, because of the injuries and the situation. I think like comparable records, I think that Kelly just has the top end talent to build around and Cup's gonna come back. I just think that like running back is not a deep position and she has two that are just getting massive volume. So there are wide receivers out there that she can get. She has Cooper Cup coming back. Like you look at Rasheed Rice last year, he didn't turn on really until towards the end of the season in his rookie year. So you have like some potential with Worthy. I like
Mhm.
her team has potential to just be awesome. And we've seen Derrick Henry just thrash people in the playoffs. So
that's true. Yeah, yeah. I think the potential is certainly there. In some of these guys, and yeah, Derrick Henry proven asset when it gets cold out. But yeah, to me, it looks like there's enough question marks here that unless she goes out and makes a move, which she very well could, looking at this team versus some other teams, I think as right now, yeah, I'd put her there. Well, who do you
So
have,
I had in that slot
Mike?
I had Peter. The in the sixth, I guess it is. I'm kind of losing track here. Yeah, the sixth.
We're talking. This is the seventh
Sorry,
spot.
seventh
This is
slot.
7 of 12.
Where did you have Peter?
I had Peter above the next two teams, so
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, okay. So just give me your bottom six teams again so I can kind of keep track of this. So we know.
it goes Bill, Mike, Fitz, John, Doug, Kelly.
Okay. I've got Mike, Bill, John, Fitz, Doug, Peter. Um, great. So we've got pretty different lists. This is more different than I thought it was going to be. Um, I don't really know what to do there. Maybe it's time we start at the top and work our way back in the middle to see how different it is. Um,
Yeah, I'll put it in the rundown so you can see mine
okay,
up until this point.
okay. Is this
Uh,
the
yeah, I mean, I think we can keep going up. Um,
okay?
I mean,
Let's
I've
keep going up.
imagined we have the same top, like top three, but
Sure, yeah. All right. Who do you have after? Who do you have in the number six slot?
I have Alec.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have anywhere close to, I think, the same rankings. Um, Okay, tell me about Alex's team. Why is Alec
Sorry, not
in
I'm not Alec. I'm Josh. Sorry, Josh.
You just change your mind on that, or
No, I was looking. When I was moving it over. So yeah, no.
okay. So we do have the same number 6 team. I also have Josh in
Yeah.
the sixth slot. Josh's team, McCaffrey going down seemed like it was going to be a disaster for him. Mason has clearly filled that gap pretty well. Chuba Hubbard coming on. I really like Josh's team. I don't like putting him in the 6th slot feels like a slight, but I think it's at this point the next 3 teams are all really close. It was really hard to kind of decide how to differentiate them. But I like Josh's team a lot. I think he's got a lot of really good pieces to play around with. His bench is a little weak, but the Javonte Williams kind of Josh holding on to him for dear life. I feel like for a couple of years across a few different leagues, being a big Javonte Williams fan, maybe it starts to pay off here. He's had a couple good games where he's looked all right. So I don't know. What do you think about Josh's team?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think his wide receiver core is something that I really like. As it stands today, CeeDee Lamb is probably playing at his worst football at the moment, right? I think this is his low point of the season. And if you go back to 2023, he also started very slow. It's actually a very similar
Yeah,
point output. And then he
yeah.
just absolutely crushes down the stretch, right? I think we're gonna see some of that same bit. And same thing, you go back to 2022, same thing, kind of a very slow start,
hmm
and then just catches fire. And I think at that point, then you're looking at probably the number, 1 or 2 wide receiver in the back half of the season. Amari Cooper, same thing, right? You're looking at like a pretty slow start to the season, but God, you go back, some of those games last year, especially the last 2, but there's like a good stretch in the middle there
hmm
that he was just absolutely phenomenal. And I think you're gonna get that, whether it's shitty Deshaun Watson throwing to him, or if Jameis Winston comes in for Deshaun Watson, oh my God. Amari Cooper is going to be fed probably 15 to 20 targets a game.
Yeah.
So, you're looking at, like, to me there, like, I think those 2 are great. And then Pickens, there's no one else on that team, right? The dude was pissed that he wasn't getting enough targets when he got the most targets on the team. Like, there was no one
hmm
else getting as many targets as Pickens last week, and he was still pissed that he only got, he got 7 targets, but Justin Fields, let's see, he threw 27 times, so that's a 25% target share, and he was mad that he wasn't getting more. So I imagine they'll feed him more, right? Like, so I like those guys a lot. And then, yeah, obviously Hubbard has been good so far. As long as they don't bring Brooks back or work him in, great. Tyson Chandler seems to be potentially bell cow running back here in Minnesota, assuming Aaron Jones is out for a little while. So there's some potential. And then, when you look at the quarterback situation, he's picked up Justin Fields. Obviously, if they continue to run him, he won me 2 fantasy championships essentially in the last 2 years.
Yeah, he's a great fantasy quarterback.
So as long as he starts, I think it's really good for Josh. And then Caleb Williams. I mean, how much time we got? Let's
We don't have enough time.
we can
Jake,
talk about it.
what are Jake? What are your thoughts, real quick, on Josh's team?
Yeah, I think it's got potential to explode. It's also got potential to fizzle. I don't know. I think that like you can't really rely on Kyle Pitts. You can't rely on George Pickens. Chuba Hubbard is playing great. They might rotate in their rookie.
Hmm.
CMC is a big question mark. So yeah, I think I would put him in a similar spot in the power rankings. Like a lot of upside, a lot of question marks. But
Yeah.
Amari Cooper, like I'm not starting any Browns, no shot until something changes there. So
Yeah, I agree with you about the Amari Cooper part. I do think, I mean, I know Amari is very talented, but I mean, he is also a guy that has been historically pretty up and down. Like I know he had those huge games last year, but he also had a stretch where he was basically dog shit, and people probably didn't start him for a couple of those huge games because he had been dog shit for the 5 games before it. So. Um, but I do, I agree with you totally, John, about CD Lamb. I think CD Lamb comes on here at the end of the year, or as we move into kind of the meat of the year. Okay, so in sixth place, I had Porter. Fifth place, John. Who do you have?
I have Alec.
Okay, this is where I have Kelly in sixth place. We've already kind of talked about Kelly's team. Um, but yes, I had Kelly in fifth. You had Alec. I actually okay. Let's take a look at Alec's team.
I mean, where do you have Alec much higher?
I have Alec third, actually.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so a little bit higher, yeah. But
That makes sense. I think
how
there's argument to be made for sure.
um Jake, I guess we'll go to you. Where do you have Alec higher or lower here? So John has him in the fifth spot. I've got him in the third slot.
I think I would have him. See, I didn't write out a list like you guys, but I
N-
think I would
Yeah,
have him in the like fourth. I think I'd probably be fourth for him.
split the difference. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean I like Alec's team a lot, and I think going forward, uh, he's one. I think he definitely has some holes, and there are moves to be made. But with guys like Justin Jefferson and Jonathan Taylor, um, and DJ Moore, if Caleb Williams is really coming on here, I like I think those three guys could end up being league winners. And then, Josh Allen as your quarterback. I know he's been terrible the last couple of weeks. I have to imagine Bills will figure it out a little bit. Probably not this week. Again, well, maybe this is the week you want to catch the Jets defense when the team's in disarray. Um, but I do think Josh Allen kind of turns it on and gets it going at some point. And I think that sort of top end talent puts him over the top. What, John? Where are you at?
Yeah, I do think that there is like the top end talent is there. You know, I I'm a little like worried about certain positions. And obviously he went out and made a trade with me, and I think that trade benefited him in the short term as far as bolstering his tight end position. And Rashad White, I think, is on the down. We all think he's on kind of the down stretch and has not had a good game since week one. But did solidify his tight end position, which I think is pretty important. Although he gave up Komet, who is tight end 6 on the year right now, so I think that wasn't his weakest spot. But when you're looking at his running back situation, yeah, Taylor is a premier running back, probably, right? He's been great so far. Ankle injury right now, out 1 week,
Mm-hmm.
probably out this week. Um, maybe longer, could be lingering, right? He has an injury history. So if Taylor isn't able to come back to full form, then you are looking at a pretty big deficit at the moment, right? David Montgomery touchdown dependent. They feed him the goal, in the red zone at the goal line. So, he's likely to continue to get his touchdowns. But other than that, you're looking at a pretty weak running back situation. And then, his wide receiver core is great, right? I think Ayuk is going to be fine. He's had some very down games so far, but I think that dude is not in shape coming into the season. But at the end of the season, I think Ayuk will be a top 12 to 15 wide receiver, right? Which, if you pair him with Justin Jefferson, you're in great shape. There's, I don't think you need more than that. And then same thing with DJ Moore. As long as he continues, Caleb continues to progress, you're gonna have boom games like we saw last week. So I think, to me, it's he's in really good shape in some areas, in some really bad shape in others. And Josh Allen, I'm not sure you're gonna have the consistency of like a top 5 quarterback, every week. You're seeing boom games and down games depending on whether he's scoring touchdowns with his legs, which is really unfortunate because I have him. I went heavy after Josh Allen in other leagues, so that's a bummer. But I think that's what we're seeing right now, right? Is we're going to see a boom or bust Josh Allen unless they make a move for Devontae Adams, right? Or another wide receiver like George Pickens, perhaps, or someone else, right? So I think there's potential there if the Bills get serious and make a move. But that's why I put them at 5, because I think there are other teams that are a little bit more balanced rather than, this top heavy nature of Alex's team. So.
Well, let's take a look at some of those other teams. In the 4th slot, John, who did you have?
This is where I had Peter.
Okay, that's right. I had Steve in the 4th slot. I kind of struggled with Steve versus Alec here. I kind of had them both pretty close, and gave the nod to Alec for 2 reasons. One, I think Alec is in the weakest division in the league, and he's 3-2. I'd feel more comfortable if he was 4-1, but he's 3-2. However, he's also got almost 100-point, I think, lead on his league mates, or on his division mates. So I'm feeling pretty good about Alec winning that division. Steve, on the other hand, is in what I think is, despite my team being in there, what I think is actually the strongest division in the league. Wow, that went quick, so we're going to have to keep going. Steve, I had Steve at 4. John, where did you have Steve?
I have Steve at 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I think his team is really good. I think the wide receiver core is phenomenal. And James Cook and Jalen Hurts are going to end up being probably some of the better positional players there. So
yeah, I mean, my big worry about Steve's team is the running back position. But we talked about that earlier. John, we did talk about Steve's team earlier in the show. Yes, right? Am I forgetting that?
Yeah, we did a bit. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay. I think, his wide receiver core is so good. If there is a need to make a move, he does have the players, right, to do that, right? He can take a hit in the short term and move someone like Chase or AJ Brown for a top tier running back, right? A top 5 running back. And then you're looking at that. But I think he's got assets there that he could wait and see and let that play out. That's my position on Steve Steeman, and why I think when you're looking at it in the power rankings, taking all of that into consideration, he is number 2 ahead of my number 3, which would be Ken.
Okay.
Well, I assume you have Ken at 2.
I do have Ken at 2. Ken, who I have at 2, you have at 3. Let's take a look at Ken's team. And then actually I want to bring John, who do you have at 2 then?
Steve. I have Steve at 2.
Sorry.
At
Oh,
4, I
see
have
what you did.
Peter. I have Peter
Yes,
at
that's
4, who you
Okay.
had Alec at 4, right?
Yeah.
No, you had
Okay.
Kelly at 4.
So no, I had Steve at 4.
Oh.
My power ranking order goes the Staleys, Bill, John, Fitz, Doug, then Peter at the 7th slot, then Josh, Kelly, Steve, Alec, and I have Ken at number 2. You have Ken at number 3. Let's talk about Ken's team real quick. Ken's team, I think, is strong pretty much across the board. His running back situation is fantastic in terms of, having, I think, Gibbs, who's top end. If Brees Hall can kind of turn it on here, that'd be great for him. But I do think Hall kind of turns it on at some point this year. And then Kenneth Walker, who, is just a solid guy to have in your team. And then may have, gotten a steal in the draft with 2 rookies that are proving to be quite valuable to him in Bowers and Neighbors. So I like what Ken's got going on here. What are your thoughts, Jen?
Yeah, I think his running back situation is great, right? And Kyler Murray seems to be, back in Kyler Murray, MVP candidate form, running really well, which I think is kind of the main draw of Kyler Murray, is that he can just run like a Justin Fields or a Josh Allen. To me, it is his wide receiver situation that does give me pause. Terry McLaurin seems to have had a rejuvenation with Josh Daniels to a certain extent. Played a couple, tough defense in Cleveland, but has fared pretty well in the last 3 weeks or so. So as long as that keeps going, great. Whereas Godwin has kind of had a reverse of that, right? Very hot start, slowing down, which I think is what we're going to be seeing, and more of what's on par for Godwin, right? Without a touchdown, he is that 10-point player, which is not bad. And then Pittman is not replicating his 2023 season of
Pittman
that,
is
12
Pittman's
to
out
17.
this week too.
Yeah, he's also got a back injury, which I think could last longer. There's talk of IR for him. Which then you have Neighbors, which is great. Like, I think Neighbors is going to be a great fill in there, so I'm not terribly worried about that, right? As long as he plays. And Shakir seems to be the number 1 wide receiver in the Bills, assuming he gets healthy as well. But then you do look at the Bowers that you brought up. They're going to AOC this week. So you just don't know what that sort of situation is going to look like. It could be a boom for him. It could be, just a mess all around there. But long term, obviously, I think Ken has found 2 rookies that are going to be on his team for the next 4 years. But to me, that's why I put Ken a little bit further back, is that wide receiver situation is a little precarious as far as, having a top end. He doesn't have a top end wide receiver at the moment, right? You could
I
say
think,
Neighbors is, um,
yeah, I think
but
Ken
that
would argue
requires
Neighbors is.
that required 18, 12, and 15 targets, right? Which is he going to get that
Yeah,
many targets every game without getting injured? Maybe, maybe not. So
okay. I don't mean to cut you off here, but we are on a time limit here. And I do want to talk about the number one team, the team that we
consensus.
both have number one. And we just so happen to have the owner of that team here on the show. I had Jake's team number one. John, I believe you also have Jake's team number one.
First team I
Jake,
plotted. First team I
Jake,
plotted.
we will give you, some time here to kind of gush about your team. Are you feeling like you're in a good slot going forward?
Yeah, I think I've mostly dodged the injury bug. I had a really well-timed HN injury with a concussion going into a bye week.
Mhm.
I was already kind of planning for that. I was a little worried about the bye weeks to start. I didn't want to. I like really like my team, but I didn't want to fall into a hole record-wise early, and I've weathered that so far. So I think I'm looking pretty good. I've got, Kamara performing awesome. We'll see what happens with the quarterback change there. Barkley's just getting mad volume. It's crazy. Lamar's just running all over the place again. So, yeah, and then picking up Evans, I think really helped with my depth. I can
Mhm.
rotate. If HN gets hurt, then I've got an extra couple wide receivers on my bench now too. Tyrone Tracy looked great last year. If HN's hurt, I've got right. So yeah, I feel like I went into the auction with a plan. I kind of stuck to it, and it's been working out so far.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, I mean, I agree completely. I think like your running back situation, getting Barkley was huge. I thought, that's people were a little nervous. What's going to happen? Hurts is a running quarterback, but oh my God, I mean, he's been so good, which makes sense. You would pay the guy $12 million or whatever. You're gonna use him. It's great. Drake London seems, yeah, we talked about that earlier, coming on. The one piece that I think that I like was looking at your team and I was like, okay, where can he improve? I think you touched on it a little bit of the running back depth, right? I think you've got like Wright and Tracy. Tracy looked so good last week. They have to give him the ball more. And I think by the second half of the season, he could be a bona fide starter and competing for your flex spot, with Achan or Evans. But then the main spot that I was looking at was your tight end spot, right? Do you have plans to maybe go out and target someone um, to bolster that spot potentially? Or
I
do you
mean,
think Ingram
What-
and Fryermuth will get you there?
I
I think
think.
we're
Oh, we're out
I
of
think
time.
we're gonna be out of time. So why don't we answer that question after the commercial break?
Hello, do you like lemonade? I sure fucking do. Would you like some of my lemonade? You sure fucking would. Enjoy Pete's Lemonade, the sponsor of today's RTFL podcast. Don't leave home without it. A big gallon or jug will be just right for you. Thumbs up means cool. Good luck on your season, fellas. Have a good one.
All right, we are back. Thank you to our sponsors as always. Jake,
Great
go
sponsors.
ahead. I believe we were talking about your running back position.
Tight end. I think we were talking about
Tight
my
end.
tight
Oh,
end
sorry,
Yeah,
tight
we're
position.
end.
talking about
Uh,
Jake's tight end. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was lucky, I guess, to add Freiermuth early. Because Ingram got hurt like in pregame warmups,
Hmm.
and hasn't played since. And he's been fine, you know. I like I agree. That's been a weak spot, but I went back to Ingram for a reason. So I think that he's going to be fine. Like, I actually feel really good about him as a player when he's healthy. So I'm hoping he comes back this week and, picks up his 2023 form, which was quite good.
Yeah, I think I mean I think two things. One, I agree that Ingram will be fine. Like Strange has filled in, you know, pretty well in Ingram's absence, and I think it's clear they're going to use the tight end slot. And then two, I just don't know if you have like serviceable tight ends. I just don't know if tight end is the position that you go out and spend resources on this year. That like who are you going out there to get? Kelly's not trading Kelsey. Um, Ken's not moving Bowers and who else is there really that you're going to go out and move
Yeah,
people
I
for?
think there may be some marginal improvement. I mean, Bill's got Dallas Goedert, uh, you know, sitting there, so that could be an option. Doug, depending on, kind of how his next few weeks goes, you got Trey McBride sitting there. So I mean, I think that there's options, but yeah,
Hmm.
like is Ingram any worse than those two guys? I don't think so, right? I mean, Goddard will be the number 4 option potentially, and on an Eagles offense behind AJ
Hmm.
Brown, Smith, and Barkley, and then Trey McBride is. I mean, he's probably the number 2 option, right, behind uh, Marvin Harrison. But does he get used as much as he should? I mean, he gets plenty of targets, so I would say so. But
Yeah.
what's that going to cost you, right? What's it going to cost you versus what the benefit is, right? Like
Yeah.
you would say Ingram is probably the same. So.
For sure. I don't want to tank future seasons to improve marginally, Like I feel like I'm
Yeah.
gonna make targeted additions like
Mm-hmm.
when it makes sense, but I also want to keep the resources in case like I lose my entire running back room or something. So that's like I feel really good about just the overall depth of the team now. I can rotate in my good wide receivers into flex, or I can kind of manage my bye weeks now, especially with Saquon and St. Brown back for the rest of the year unless they get hurt. Like I don't have buys with them anymore. So yeah, I feel like I'm in a good spot for the next, several weeks if we hold strong and stay healthy.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, even this week you're catching Ken at a really good time for you, right? I mean, we just went through Ken's team and all the injuries that he's sustained. So you're catching him at a really good week right now. That's kind of the matchup of the week in my mind. I don't really see any other matchup that's going to be as impactful as sort of in the standings outside of maybe Peter and Alec, but I would imagine that your matchup is probably going to be the matchup to watch. So pretty exciting.
agreed. Agreed. Um, all right. Those are the power rankings. Jake on top, myself on the bottom. John had Bill on the bottom, but um,
And then he did
the
me dirty, which was so rude of you.
the middle
I
was
was
a bit
being
of a
nice to you.
jumble, but John, in my power rankings, where I don't even know. Did we say where did you have you in your power rankings? What number were you for each
I
of them?
was number 9. So
Okay, you were number
yeah,
number
yeah,
10. Okay, and I did you dirty because I put you at number 10.
yeah. I mean, I was being nice to
Um,
everyone else by putting myself at 9. Really, really, the real power rankings I meant.
oh, so you expected me to put you higher so that you
Yeah,
could be like, oh no, guys, no, I know, I got you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um,
Messed up.
well, I'm sorry to disappoint. All right. Next week is a weekly high week. That is the prize. This has been a long show. So I want to say a special thank you to Jake for hanging out with us the whole time. Jake, pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having
Come
me.
back anytime. John, always a pleasure. Even when you're being snarky about your power rankings. And I think that'll do it for this episode of the RTF show.
We got sponsors, baby.
We
All
should
right.